all expenses been spared for this one. It's best investigation, and this was put to. Is this what you've all been voting on this morning? Okay. Right. Okay. With one vote, we've got the investigation into the cuts. So. Next up is the apprenticeship. And after that we've got the sponsorship investigation. Next is the Olympic legacy investigation. This one's good. Dropout report, next one. And the winner is the student loans investigation. So
come and get your prize. That's a group, obviously.
It wasn't all.
Emma just grabbed the egg and
So at this point, having celebrated your achievements, I think we should also give everyone a round of applause, because this was really a very impressive group effort from all of you. So a round of applause for everybody. And what you've told us as well, so we've kind of consulted with you in terms of who would be the best editors for the next round of investigations, and we've identified 6 new editors. Those are Hannah Durham, okay. Hannah Dixon. Where's Hannah gone? There you go. Ollie Chater, while I'm near you. Emma Buckley. Katie Bradford and Liz Johnson. If you 6 can now go up to B312, you will be briefed on your investigations in a minute. So if you 6 can go up to 312. And what the rest of you are going to do now. We've appointed editors. The rest of you will need to apply for a job on the investigations that they will be leading. Okay? You cannot do the job you've already done. The reason for this is we want you to develop a broad range of skills. It doesn't mean you can't continue to practice the skills that you've gained in the first half, but you will be building on that and adding to that with new skills, okay? So if you're a data journalist now, then you might be a community manager or a network journalist or a multimedia journalist, which now becomes open to everyone. What they're doing basically is they're going to select their first choice investigation and their second choice investigation. I'll explain what the investigations are in a minute. And their first choice role and their second choice role. So you'll be looking at who's picked your investigation and who's picked the role that you want, and then based on you, they'll also supply a link to their work on the last investigation, so you can look at their work. You'll obviously have personal experiences of these people as well, and you will hire based on that, and you can call people up for interview if you want, and we'll bring them up.
I'm Simon, Simon Whitehouse. I currently work for Digital Birmingham, and I've done a variety of work around open data, so open government data. So I'm trying to think what the relevance is to the thing that you're doing here. Previously I worked in education, and I've helped Paul when he had to help me investigate education evening recently and wrote some of that up. So I know a fair bit about education data sources, I know bits about working in the local authority for 20 odd years. I know bits about how the local authority work and people in there. I also have an involvement in prisons, so although I don't think Paul necessarily, I know it's nice and elliptical, but I am in front of a camera, so I best be relatively quiet about that. But no, so I do have some knowledge around prisons, and so that might be helpful to people.
So I would encourage you to ask questions around that with Kat, and let yourself be guided on what's newsworthy about your, or likely to be newsworthy about your investigation. And Simon's expertise is going to be how organisations work, where to get the data, some of the kind of institutional and political background to some of this, which again you quite often
what I know about prison education is that in recent years we moved away from having prisons having necessarily their own prison education team, and now usually their education is delivered by colleges.
Yeah.
So it used to be Dudley College offered quite a lot of education, but Manchester College have got the contract across a wide range across the prison estate. They call the collective prisons in England and Wales the prison estate, and that they deliver a large percentage of the training into prisons. Prison education will be focused at very entry-level standards. So there'll be a fair chunk of stuff around basic literacy, and there's also vocational training that gets offered. So Birmingham is categorised. All prisons are categorised by the type of prison that they are. Birmingham, in the terminology, is Cat B local prison. And what that means is Category B, or BCAT, local prison. And the way that breaks down is when people go into prison, they're categorised. Any prisoner is categorised from A, B, C or D. A is maximum security. Those are the most dangerous people that we have in our prisons. The vast majority of people enter the prison system with a category B, which means that they're locked in, so they're not in an open prison, and when they're in a local prison is there to serve the courts. So it's when somebody first comes in. So most of the people in which working in HMP Birmingham have been recently arrested and come into the prison system. They're going through courts, and once they've been found, if they are found guilty and if they've been sentenced, at that point they'll start moving on to other prisons. So
it's quite temporary.
it is, which means it's got a very high turnover, and that's something that's worth. So the fact that you've got a lot of people who are coming into prison from the outside into Birmingham.
The only thing I would say with when you're looking into sort of data and things, just always keeping in mind that it's got to be a person that this has got to relate to. So case studies are key. You can have all of these facts and figures, but if you can't, you need someone to be able to comment on it in a way that's interesting.
It's going to be a bit hard to find someone who'd be willing to
Possibly,
say about.
but then you don't always have to have them. They don't always have to have pictures. You can speak to them anonymously. Cases like that is beneficial.
Right.
No way to like find
I think
them.
Charities.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah,
It's still a story that's saying that like it's been covered a lot, but is it a myth?
is it damaging? Yeah, definitely charities, student groups. If they've got usually NUS will have like a women's officer, a welfare officer, or even student welfare. This uni, they might have someone they can put up to talk to you. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to turn around and say it's right, because you don't want that to transmit that kind of. And, you can get. I don't know how you present this, but what I would look at is if you've got your main story, have sort of side bits looking, a sidebar or a secondary piece saying that this is the kind of culture of sponsorship in sport. This is what you can earn if you kind of at the top of your game. So you know what kind of starting point you're looking at, and then it sounds like you've got. Is this the one with the case study, the guy who got sued?
No, because it's the story we had, because it's the same as we did before.
Yeah.
She wanted to remain anonymous, and basically she was sponsored by Adidas, but Adidas were like, you have to always wear Adidas clothing. You can't do this, you can't do that. So eventually she dropped out of being a sponsor because they were literally saying if you don't wear Adidas clothing, you're not going to get paid, basically, and stuff like that. So I think the angle is about like how they maybe mistreat athletes. Or
Well, you'd have to be quite careful because obviously if you're having this published or something like that, you can't libel a big company. You don't want to, trust me. Go to, if it's Adidas in particular, go to them, ask what their kind of, what sort of contracts they look at. Go back to the same case study if they've got a copy of their original contract, and you can take out if there's a particular clause that relates to if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. So you know that you've got that basis of fact. Go back and re-interview them. Ask, how they felt when they were told this, what it means for their sort of, their Olympic dreams dying now, really, if they've left athletics completely. The only thing is they might be a bit cagey with it coming up to the Olympics. They're not going to say anything that's going to essentially piss their sponsor off.
yeah,
So
they're going to kind of. That's what happened last time. They kind of gave us what they wanted to kind of portray, but not actually what's happening.
sometimes it's often good for Mark with a chat with someone who knows that kind of leads you to something. They might not want to be the one that will go on the record, but they might say it might be worth looking at this.
I mean, there's loads of other sports academies and stuff around here as well, so I could look into like even trying to get sponsors.
I mean, but Harry's might be a good one in respect that they have. I think she's drawn a good stable of athletes. And they might put you in contact with other sort of younger athletes.
Not the investigation, just to look at.
Yes, because I think from what Paul said, that he's got a contact with in Birmingham, so there might be some specific information that you'll get as a result of that. And therefore, that's probably the...
It just really lifts the story, because you can have all these facts and figures, but if you haven't got someone or something to pin it to, it just makes, it completely lifts it. So I would try charities to see if you could get a case study for yours. But equally, I mean, I know yours is a two-sided thing of if it's true or a myth. There could be people that are quite pissed off that there's this idea that lots of students are becoming prostitutes. So speak to a few charities, speak to if there's a welfare officer here. They'll know. And it's that kind of anecdotal thing. They might turn around and say, well, I know of someone a couple of years ago, XYZ happened, and that's, we had a story a couple of weeks ago in the Mail where I think it was just a chat with a nun, and she came out with, these families have been trafficked, and we found this this child that was in a cage in a house, and you think, my God, why did that happen? Yeah. That turned into like a national story. So it's that kind of, you've got to think of the right questions to ask of people, but approach the right people. But in terms of yours, I would say from a sponsorship side for sport, there's loads of athletics clubs here. I mean, Birchfield Harriers are great. They might be a good one to have a chat to and just see what their, if any of their athletes are sponsored, what sort of experiences they've had. Because you said quite rightly with your last one, when you were going to big companies for information, they only give you what they want you to give. So they're only going to trot out an official line. They're not going to tell you something they don't want to know. So.
The fact that Liz submitted screen grabs of her call logs to prove that she'd been phoning an MP trying to get a quote.
Do you know about?
Which is the first time anyone's ever submitted call log screen grabs as an assault.
But this is when there's an election coming up, you wouldn't believe how easy it is to get hold of an MP, if it's a...
I finally got through and I says, I'm a journalist for BCU, because I thought if I'm a student, they probably won't talk to me. So I was just, I'm a journalist for BCU, and then I was like, I asked them my questions and whether Spanner would be able to, talk to me and this and that. And they went, one second. And then they went off and they said, sorry, the person who deals with these isn't here at the minute. And I was like, well, do you know when she'll be back? And they was like, next week. And I was like, well, if I don't get an answer by next week, I'll just put down that you haven't commented.
Fairly good.
And they was like, oh no, we'll get back to you.
G4S, there's tons of information out there. It just takes someone to gather it together and tell a good story about it. Which is really. What did you think?
So G4S run a number of prisons already.
I think it's
Are we allowed
Thank
to
you
go
very
grab?
much.
That's all right. No. Can we go and
Thanks for the help.
No,
Yes.
no, good luck with it, but give us a shout if you need it.